Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome, Isabel and Alexandra. Welcome you in my podcast episode, and I would like to talk about a very interesting subject which is happening these days. I mean, how to shaking up the workplace, especially now in the pandemic when we're having a kind of hybrid model. And in this episode, I would like to deeply discuss with you hybrid concept, customer centricity, and personalization concept in terms of performance. Sounds sophisticated, but you are the expert in that area. So I would like to get more glimpse from your side to our audience. Before we jump to the main interview, ladies, can you introduce yourself and give our audience what you do, why you do what you do, and so let's begin.
Thank you, Cornelia. Really lovely to be with you here. I'm Alexandra Potrykus, also known as Ola. I am an HR person from my background and experience. I spent more than 10 years in a corporate environment doing different HR roles, my passion being learning and development and talent development. And almost 4 years ago, I left my comfort zone of the corporate experience and jumped into the unknown. And the unknown started with looking how we can bring teams together, how we can upskill at scale. And later on, and we'll talk more about shaking up workplaces. Me, Isabel, and two other ladies, we founded Shake Up the Workplace. We'll tell you more about this later. I'm originally from Poland, and I am a mother, a wife, and a dog owner. That's me.
Yeah, it's also, I know it's you are girls running that company, not two of you, but I think 3 or 4 of you. And Isabel is one of the 4 pillars as well, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes, hi Cornelia, good morning also from my side. Super happy about our conversation happening today. I'm Isabel Steinhoff. I'm originally from Germany, so you will discover in this talk with us that we have very diverse backgrounds also in terms of countries of origin. My background is also very different from Ola's, so I have more of a classical business administration background and economics as well. And I used to work in the media business and in consulting. That's kind of where I got in touch with the topic of future of work in the first place, is working in big transformation projects with my clients, and then seeing that kind of the people aspect of it was kind of missing a bit. So when I heard from one of our other colleagues, Reka, about shaking up the workplace as a concept, and the girls that had founded this initiative and had planned this unconference to happen, I was super on board. And yeah, that's how I joined Shake Up the Workplace, and I'm still with these ladies, and happy to give you insights into, what it means today in the hybrid workplace.
Absolutely. I'm so delighted to have you there because you are like a disruptive. You are really bringing the completely disruptive concept and looking for the workplace from the HR lens is slightly different. So then I'm asking you ladies the first questions. What about why the concept of the shake up came into the idea and its life, and also why it's needed actually, why you put that one into the
I'm happy to start. So it wasn't a secret to us even before the pandemic that workplaces needed to be shaken up, right? And we looked at it from different angles. We actually were a bit soul searching ourselves, like, where do we belong? Where do we find a place where we can start a dialogue and action? And honestly, we couldn't find it. When we were starting this kind of search, we were just very passionate about the idea of we are observing a very big need. Everybody's talking about future of work, but it ends up on talking. And it needs to start being more actionable. Taking action was something that really drove us. And that passion led us to really looking for the right ecosystem that would come and shake up together with us and follow our passion. For that, we saw that we needed to have, of course, the big corporates, but also the small startups, the small organizations, the consultants and the gig workers that are becoming more and more present in our job markets. We looked into the government side, we looked into academia, we looked into students. So really trying to understand who has something to say, who can really help us take action to do that. And of course, COVID came and we were shaken up for sure, and everybody had to digitalize at scale like they never imagined. So something that would probably take us 10 years took 18 months. And here we are today. So we've done, of course, the event, but that was just a starting point. And maybe Isabel, you want to add a little bit on this taking action, what it means to us.
Yeah, I think another aspect of what you mentioned, Ola, is that all these groups, they kind of always have the same problems, but they don't exchange their knowledge. Also within companies, we see it a lot. Yeah, we are a big pharma company, so maybe we have exchange with other pharma companies, but we never leave what we call a bubble. Yeah, everybody of us has this, your network, your company, kind of your comfort zone, your zone of expertise. That's your bubble, and you will not find the solutions for the future necessarily within your bubble. So we have this hashtag that you might have seen online. It's break the bubble, and that's also something that's very important to us, because in order to take action, as Ola mentioned, you need to go out of your comfort zone. You need to exchange and learn from others, so you can be inspired to, experiment within your own team or company. Because the future of work is so broad and it needs to be defined on almost like an individual level for you to really be able to put it into work and make it work for yourself. So that's also, I think, pretty important for everybody out there. There is no one size fits all solution for shaking up the workplace or for the future of work. So you really need to, reach out to others and try to co-create together.
Yeah, you mentioned it is like a break the bubble, and I fully understand that concept. Even if you look on our personal patterns, it's quite difficult to do that. My next question would be, what is the main challenge to break that bubble from the organization perspective? Because we know organizations have their own culture, their own ways to do the things. And where are you coming with your concept? How you are trying to, if you could pull it with curtains and give our listeners as well, how you are doing that, from the a little bit tips which you could elaborate in that breaking the bubble concept.
I will start with one example that was really relevant to us and the world of work in June or in the beginning of summer. So we knew that hybrid will be the new norm. That was not the question, right? We all heard there's not going to be going back to the old for sure. There's going to be a mix of face-to-face physical interaction in the offices, but we will continue also working remotely. And we were really one of the first organization in the world. And we looked at really senior big names, Josh Bersin, for example. We compare ourselves to, who is doing what. Of course, maybe big consultancies were doing also projects, again, internally in their own bubbles with their own clients. So we created something called Shaker Academy. And that Shaker Academy was focused on co-creating hybrid workplaces. And for that, we invited different companies. We had Siemens, Microsoft, Sanctus, Migros, big retailer here in Switzerland, to talk and give examples about what are they doing to co-create a hybrid workplace in their own workplaces. But we also kind of framed it a little bit. We didn't have all the answers for sure, but we said, we know people who are good at different topics and let's say concepts that will be useful for building a culture, bringing technology in the hybrid workplace, creating psychological safety, how to be a good manager in a hybrid workplace. And we brought the group, a small group, together to discuss. So we had people from not only Switzerland, but also Germany, the Netherlands, coming to co-create with us. They had a chance to learn from our thought provoker and expert, but then they also spent quite a lot of time in breakout rooms discussing, learning from the organizations. And then also they had homework, basically. They had assignments which they had to complete. They had to reflect on their own workplaces and what they would do as a next step learning from this. So bringing some concepts, bringing examples, bringing people together, and really inviting them and showing them what is the first, second, third step you can take to co-create, for example, a hybrid workplace. And we could go on like this with different topics. We are actually now discussing an idea of how to create an inclusion and belonging in workplace. Again, a topic that we all are fully aware is needed. Our company is doing it right. We hear that it's a challenge, right? And we have a lot of challenges currently in the workplace. So again, coming together, not to be stuck in your own bubble, but connect to other industries across, like Isabel was mentioning, coming together as a group of people who can bring diverse thinking is something that we really want to do, and then actioning this for the so what. I don't know if Isabel, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, Ola, thank you for the example of the Shaker Academy, which is a very structured format. And I think in addition to that, we also offer more informal gatherings online. We have coffee sessions, online gatherings, webinars, in the classical sense as well, where we come together to exchange as a group. And we started that obviously during the pandemic, where people were also feeling isolated from their companies, from their teams. So it was also a great source of companionship and inspiration for our community, the Shaker community. So I think that's also a way for everybody to not only do a very structured, formal focus on learning actual skills, but also just being inspired and exchanging with others in a more informal setting.
Oh, this is amazing, because now I see very, very clearly what you're doing. So basically you're like a bridge between those companies plus the solution and the know-how which actually we are bringing, and it's creating that safe space where they can share and they can learn from each other. Ladies, then my question is coming into that concept which you are bringing, and overall to the all small and the big corporation in terms of challenges. How would you like to approach that one from the opportunity perspective as well? You know, we see a lot of challenges, how to put the teams, how to create a bond, how to still performing at highest level. But what at the same time, there are the opportunities, because we people having a tendency to see negatives, but not so much the opportunities. From your experience, which you did already with your team, what will be the opportunities in that concept which you are bringing?
First, I think we need to kind of understand that the last 18 months have been a very special time. So there was a point when in Switzerland, everybody had to go to the home office. It was like a mandate, right? So for a lot of companies, that was the first time everybody was working remotely, or some people even working remotely. So there were a lot of problems there, as you also mentioned, Cornelia, and people were overwhelmed, and it was like almost a bit of a panic mode. Everybody needed a laptop and a screen, and everything was so loud. But I think then the opportunity side of that is everybody got to learn what it means to work effectively in a remote setting, which was very different, right? If you're in the office, you have your routine, you have your colleagues, it's kind of a very safe space. But then there was no commute. You could do your laundry, you could have lunch with your kids, you could do all these things. And I think there was, for some time, also a well-being aspect to it that people were not familiar with, because it was a new situation. So there was people that it was easy for them, others had struggles, but everybody kind of had to learn to deal with it as an individual, but also as a team and as an organization. And then when this mandate got stopped and people were like, okay, so how are we going back to the office? How do we want to work, right? It was a moment to really question your norms, the way everything has been working for 150 years, let's say. So I think that in itself is an opportunity. And I want to mention, which is something we discuss a lot with our community. Right now, we are also in a transition piece. We are not there yet at the new normal. Nothing is perfect yet. We are still experimenting. So that's what I see as the biggest chance and positive, is now to use this opportunity to have a dialogue internally, to really co-create. Ola mentioned it a few times before. That means creating it together, which is something that is hard for some leaders, obviously, because they had to be the ones to make the decisions and they have the responsibility. But to really come together and have a dialogue about how you want to work. How is work going to work for you? And then hybrid will be probably for a lot of companies the new norm, but yeah, you have to find the way that it works for you. And that can be exciting as well, because you can try a lot of things. With the right mindset, I think it's just also fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Ola, what is your thought? Because I highly believe mindset is the first milestone which we have to do from the leadership perspective, from the team member perspective and the organization perspective. And ladies, then my next question would be, how you measure right now this mindset? Is the community overall, big corporate, kind of open into that? Or you still observing like reluctant, no, with all, I mean, because sometimes I'm hearing they are forcing to go to the old pattern because this is what we used to know. Yeah. So others, they are very open and they are taking that challenge and trying to co-create. So how would you like to observe so far in that part of clients which you are working on even on a global scale?
Few words about who we are working with is definitely the organizations that are already doing fantastic, right? Those are organizations that are great places to work, that have amazing engagement scores, and they continue to still challenge themselves. They didn't sit on the podium now to say, hey, we are the great place to work worldwide. And I can give an example of our awesome partner Cisco here, right? A tech company, winning among, all the engagement scores. Still, they continue to reinvent, ask what's next, how do we do hybrid now, even though we've been doing this for 15 years. And there are a lot of skeptics, of course, and it's not easy to break the bubble. And we don't want to fall into the trap of being just with the few that are already transformed. We need to open up, and that's why we also welcome individuals. You may not be representing your whole organization, but you might feel the passion we felt when we started this journey. You can be a single person that wants to change something, and you can get inspired and come to us and come to learn something and maybe start small action, because like everywhere, you have to start with yourself. You then go into your team, and slowly, maybe from team level, you can go to, a department, functional level. You shouldn't expect always a change coming, from top to bottom. That's very difficult, and it requires years. So that's one thing. Second thing, a huge observation, of course, the dialogue of the big resignation, right? So we are all noticing that. Now McKinsey came out with a very interesting study. They actually point to a matter that is sitting in the challenge of employees not feeling valued, and they don't feel also that they belong, So again, the question around how an organization can value their employees and how you create that sense of belonging within the organization, but also belonging into a wider ecosystem would be another signal for me where we can start playing and we can have the opportunity of shaking things up. And when you were asking questions, Cornelia, I have to say I was that person in the corporate world myself, sitting in my comfort zone, knowing the world internally, really well networked, but I had no clue what was going on on the outside. And okay, my organization was feeding me with lovely, really challenging development opportunities. Once you're out, you're lost. And that's my call to everybody. We cannot get stuck in our own bubbles, even if it's really comfortable, really, really great. I really invite people to step out, look outside, and maybe somebody already solved your challenge. Why should we always reinvent internally? Why cannot we speed up the transformation that is required? So that's my personal call to action also to anyone listening, and not only in HR, I would say any organization, any function.
I like it very much, Ola, because once I was having a discussion regarding the innovation, and one of the conclusion out of that discussion was you don't have to be like a big giant tech, you know. What the innovation means, doing the things differently. And what you do, ladies, really great is collecting the one who are ahead of the game, who are very adaptive, you know, the companies who are there, who are seeking the change, they are not scared and trying to attract the others. And like you said, everything starts from the individual. So I really love that concept, and that's why we are having that podcast, just to show the audience that there are people out there on the market who might walk you through that transformation part together, yeah, which is way better than climbing alone and trying to figure out yourself. Awesome. There's one more subject, ladies, which I would like to explore from the inside part in the organization. I mean the customer centricity. You know, this is very typical, which you HR know it, but let's bring it to our audience who are in the organization on the opposite side than HR. When the leaders are coming to the HR for the help, for the support, to change the situation, yeah? And how does it look like? I'm just asking a little bit provocative questions. So how to be still customer-centered, which means our employees, and still serving them at the best, you know? How to break that mindset inside the organization.
One thing to clarify also maybe is that we are really not for HR only. And only I am an HR person. Actually, if you look at our team, we have an IT background, Bilge, who comes from customer-focused organization. Isabel introduced herself in media and consulting. Reka was in consulting as well and well-being. So I can only present my own view a little bit, but I also don't want to kind of silo us in thinking about HR only. We all have a role in becoming customer-centric across all the functions. But my 5 cents around customer centricity, it's hard. It's really hard. And again, it comes down to the mindset. We very often, especially in corporate world, where we are so stuck in our own complex matrix organizations, where we are surrounded by millions of processes and procedures that we have to follow, it's sometimes hard to remember about who is my customer and how do I serve them at my best. And we see it even with our own work, when we go internally and we really help shake up internal organizations. We always ask that question: who is your customer and what are their needs? What is your persona? We did this exercise also for the hybrid workplace. We started with talking about a persona in your workplace, or a couple of personas in your workplace, and how do you serve them? So that question is super, super important. We hear a lot of organizations using the buzzword of agile, and I would really like to invite everybody to go beyond using the buzzword of agile and trying to understand and trying to practice agile practices, and things like design thinking would really help to peel the onion and think about personalization and customer centricity. So that's my kind of big thinking. Isabel, maybe you have something to add also from your side as a more consultant brain.
Yeah, my consultant heart is jumping. Customer centricity, obviously, which is linked to innovation, as you mentioned, Cornelia. So maybe just to add, I think the frameworks and the methods we know from also outside of HR, because that's, I think, where they were introduced from, was more from the business lines that were trying to innovate and thinking customer centricity in terms of the end customer. They are now making their way back the value chain also into supportive functions. And as Ola mentioned, everybody has to be customer centric, and that can be somebody else, can be your colleague that's in front of you, thinking from the customer backward. So I think to just really go back to, as Ola mentioned, these basic methods, they are really effective. To have a persona, and this is not a Cisco commercial, but in our last session together, they really walked us through, like, what are their 3 to 5 personas they also have, because people have different needs. So as you mentioned, it has to become more personal. But if we want to do it at scale, if it's a large organization, we have to kind of put people into somewhat of a bucket, obviously. Otherwise, how can we deal with it? We cannot do personalization in terms of 77,000 individual concepts, right? So I think that's something we have to also understand and manage expectations of people there. But if you have an open dialogue about it, it works. You can still do it. And for the HR function, what I observe more from the outside is, so we see there was a fluctuation in engagement and productivity, as I mentioned in the beginning, because everything was really crazy. But now that kind of people are finding their groove, we see higher levels of productivity, but fluctuating levels of engagement. So really go after it in your organization. What are the reasons? Talk to your people, pick up the phone, call them and say, what's going on? And not just, I saw your engagement score, but like more in general, how do you feel we can serve you? Because as I said before, nobody has all the answers yet. So we have to engage more with people. I think it's harder, obviously, it's more intense. You maybe have to leave this comfort zone, but it's also super rewarding because I feel like it's a job enrichment of some sort. Yeah, it's an opportunity to reconnect and also to reshape the perception of the HR function in an organization, because there's still some organizations that see it more as a support function, but this one is like moving into the area of really enabling the business and enabling everybody and the people and the culture. And I think that's super awesome and a great chance.
Yeah.
If I can add few cents still, there's something around, again, going back to mindset, it's so easy to assume that we know. You don't talk to your customer, you don't talk to your employees, you don't talk to your, whatever is the persona, and you assume, and that's a huge drop. So rather than assuming, go out, talk to people, and also take example of what we are doing. We are doing on an external scale. We are breaking the bubble on the external scale. You can do the same thing internally. You can break the bubbles, your own silos within your organization. As an HR person, you can actually pull an employee, a leader, a manager together, and from different functions, and start co-creating together. I think this is where really the magic happens and where shaking up starts to happen as well. So that's another example where you don't have to immediately go on the outside, but you can also take action internally.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you, Isabel. I really loved your examples, because through your concept, actually, like you mentioned, you can kind of copy paste. And this is the same what we are calling innovation, just observing what others are doing and implementing same concept. I'm not saying do exactly the same, because that's why you are there. That's why you are positioning yourself slightly different. But from the mindset perspective, like you just mentioned, co-creating this little model, which you just share with our audience, I think will be already kind of revolutionary thing for some organization, because I'm pretty sure, like you mentioned, this is the stereotype. They are like a close from each other departments unless there's a crisis. They say, okay, help me how to do that. But I think there's a little bit too late to do these things in a more proactive, more constructive way. We should start doing it. We, which means organization, leaders, start doing it early before the crisis hit, because then we are ready for the crisis and then you can quickly react on that. Okay, so let's move to another piece, which Isabel mentioned, about talking, be vulnerable as a leader. And Ola, you also mentioned we don't have the answers yet. So how that concept, that mindset, be vulnerable, showing transparently that I don't know the answer, but I will try to figure out how that one played the role in the whole concept of shaking up the workplace.
I can start. Few years back, even before the pandemic, there was a big conversation about even looking at the C-suite of the organization, the top leadership of the house. They no longer can bring the answers individually. The individual power is gone. Deloitte talked about the symphonic C-suite. We need to be like an orchestra. Everybody brings a tune, everybody brings something together. So you as a leader, no matter where you are, C-suite, an intern in the organization, think about you will not be able to create, innovate on your own. You need to come together, number one. So that's something that is an invitation for me to say the world of work today, the workplaces today, and the challenges we face from tech perspective, from cultural perspective, are so complex, an individual cannot solve it. So if you understand and accept that you on your own will not win the challenge, you have to start asking yourself, who do I need to bring and how do I co-create together with others? So that's my first invitation to everybody. Forget about being an individual winner. It's no longer possible to win. And maybe I hand over to Isabel to build on my thoughts.
Thanks, Ola. And I think it's super hard. So again, recognizing that also a lot of people I work with, they are like 50 to 60 years old. They are the leaders of their company. Some of them have founded that company, and their whole logic of success is being turned upside down. And that's hard. It's super tough. It's a really tough conversation to have with yourself. So that's what I want to add, is also kind of be kind to yourself in that direction. And you know, there is a lot of talk about that, being mindful and all these things, but really just be kind to yourself and try it in maybe little pieces here and there. If you're fortunate, you've built already a C-suite and you work together there as a team. But if you have maybe something like a shadow board, right, where younger employees or employees from different functions sit there and they kind of just give feedback on your initiatives, for example. That can be a first way to open up, to be vulnerable. Other examples are there were some CEOs that had town hall meetings. We know this like classical town hall meetings, but they turn it into sort of a ask me anything format, and also really just saying, I don't know, but I believe in our company and I believe we will find a way, and I am now doing everything I can to help us get through this, right? Back in the day where everything was crazy. And I think that was a learning opportunity in itself that pushed people out of their comfort zone. So yeah, I think those little mindset changes, right? Change is good if you go little steps and you will just change your behavior if there is action and you experience something, right? You cannot just say, oh, now I'm an inclusive leader. I get up in the morning and now I'm perfect. And that doesn't change your behavior really. It has to be these little things that kind of give you positive feedback, and then you think, okay, maybe I can do the next step, and maybe I can do the next step. So that's how a lot of organizations also changed their organizational structure. We see now holocratic or sociocratic organizations. And a company of some friends here, they were regular, they had 4 founders, and now those founders are basically on the same level, if you will, as all the other employees. They always have been because they're human. But you know what I mean, right? There was a hierarchy. We were the founders. It was kind of, we had the final responsibility, and now it's flattened. And that was hard. They can talk about that, and they often do. They give keynotes about what it meant for them. And also from big companies in Germany, I just had someone a few weeks ago in a conversation. She said, I had to redefine what career means for me, because there is no classical career path anymore, because we don't have these hierarchical functions. So like, not even my title can change that much. So it's really, but that's the, let's say, very extreme example, of course, but I just want to give like the bandwidth of what's out there. So just find kind of your steps from where you are right now towards those examples, and inform yourself about what others are doing. Again, breaking that bubble, talking to other people from C-suites or, organizational development teams, because a lot of change is happening. So maybe something will inspire you.
Absolutely. I love the concept and what you are bringing, ladies, right now. And I clearly see it as well if I'm talking to my friends, because I'm also working in the corporate. And this tendency, like you mentioned, hierarchy is kind of shrinking, not shrinking in the org chart, but shrinking in terms of responsibilities. You know what I mean? It's like you, Isabel, was mentioning. And it's also required kind of development on both sides, on the leaders as well, and also organization, people who are in the team with the leaders and vice versa. So absolutely right. And like you said, and like even Ola mentioned, it's a constant process. We are not there yet. And I think it will be still evolving and growing and changing. I think absolutely for a good way. And what I also observe, ladies, what I more and more, absolutely, there is no need to have an authority to lead, in the organization as a team member. So it's like a kind of collective, like Ola mentioned, it's kind of also collective approach all together as organization going towards our goal as organization, as a department. So it's really awesome. It was very big pleasure to talk to you and elaborate subject of working remotely, hybrid model, customer centricity, individualization. It's really awesome. Ladies, can you give our audience what are the projects which you are currently running, or where they can find you? Or I know you are based in Zurich in Switzerland, but for others who might find you via digital world, how they can do it?
Based in Switzerland, really embracing the hybrid or even virtual way of working and engaging, and absolutely welcoming people from outside of Switzerland, that's for sure. The most important channel of communication, if you just are curious to see what we are doing and want to keep up to date with us, is the LinkedIn that we have, and hopefully Cornelia will add that to the podcast.
Yes.
We have a newsletter where we actually also invite people to our open events, the mentioned tech talks that we run with Cisco, our virtual gatherings. There is actually one gathering coming this week on the 4th of November at 4 p.m. Central European time. So that could be also an opportunity for people to join us. And there will be also a few things that are available from us, which are more product-based. Let's say the Shaker Academy about co-creating hybrid workplace. That's available also on demand through our learning platform. And behind that learning platform, we also have a community. So if you want to tap into not only our own answers, but other people's answers and examples, that's of course possible through us. And for sure, we are also really welcoming new voices, new partners. That's always something that we are open to do. We want to challenge our own thinking as well. So if you're a person that either is interested in collaborating with us, we would love to talk to people, and hear if you have ideas that either are worth spreading or if you want to learn together. And Isabel, I hand over to you, but for sure I forgot something.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I would like to add is, so obviously we live virtually also on our homepage, right? shakeuptheworkplace.com. It's where you see the whole shebang and array of activities we're doing. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram. But as you mentioned, as we're talking about business context, for the most part, we are very active on LinkedIn. And I do recommend our newsletter as well, because there you also kind of get informed. You also get access to some tools that we share, like these little nuggets that we talked about with you, Cornelia. But also, like, for example, the concept of a persona. For those people who are not familiar, they can sign up to we have like a little toolbox that you can subscribe to with useful tools for the hybrid workplace. So there is a lot of ways to connect, or just to reach out to Ola and myself on LinkedIn. And we're happy to show you around and find what suits you best.
If you can give our audience, what are the product services which ShakeUp company is doing, that would be really awesome.
Some organizations, some people come to us and say, hey, I would like to maybe focus more internally because this is where my need is, and I really have a tension, have a problem, have a situation where I need to work internally. There are others who are actually saying, hey, we've solved something internally and we would like to showcase it. So again, no one size fits all. We are small and quite agile ourselves, so best is to talk to us. One of the things we will be experimenting with is, and where we get the best feedback from our community so far, is people love to get together and solve problems within the ecosystem. And one of the things we will be doing next year is probably, this is just a working title, a mastermind group would be something where we would start meeting on a regular basis, solving problems that are sourced directly from the ecosystem. So if you join us, you have an opportunity to either help solve a challenge that is similar to yours, or you just want to contribute to somebody, or you actually have a challenge you need to solve and you can't do it on your own, and then we can help you solve it. So that's kind of the dynamic of and the feedback we are getting. We can facilitate those gatherings where we are really solving problems and actioning on challenges that we are facing currently.
That will be a whole hour interview. So I thank you very much, Ola and Isabel, being in my podcast and giving our listeners the glimpse about shaking up the workplace and how to do it more effective, especially now when we have remote workplaces and after pandemic, be more effective. Thank you very much. And if you want to hear more about such a subject, please subscribe. I'm looking forward for your comments and talk to you soon.